The galaxy was wide, full of stars and civilizations older than human memory. Humanity had only recently joined the Galactic Concord, a coalition of advanced worlds that had known space travel for thousands of years. Compared to them, humans were still new explorers, still learning, still adapting. But one thing was different about humanity. They did not give up easily. That reputation had already spread far among the stars. Captain Ethan Hale was one of the humans most respected by the Concord. He was a diplomat, a peacekeeper, and a man who believed that words could change the course of history. He had seen war and he understood its cost. Because of that, he always tried to prevent it when possible. When he walked into a room, he carried calm with him. People listened when he spoke. He did not force respect. He earned it. One morning, Ethan stood inside the Stellar Embassy Hall, a massive structure orbiting a quiet blue star. The hall was quiet except for the soft hum of life support systems. Screens displayed star charts and diplomatic symbols. Ethan expected to meet with his usual counsel for trade discussion. Instead, he found 3 senior ambassadors waiting for him, all looking serious. Ambassador Wren, a tall and silver-haired human elder, spoke first. "Captain Hale, thank you for arriving quickly. We have a matter of great importance, one that concerns interstellar peace." Ethan listened carefully. He did not interrupt. That was his nature. Ambassador Wren continued. "The Volari Empire has reached out to humanity. They are requesting something unusual, something delicate. The Volari were well known across the galaxy. They were proud, ancient, and deeply traditional. Their society was built around symbolic bonds of leadership. Their rulers were chosen not only for wisdom, but also for the strength of their presence. The Queen of the Volari was the heart of the empire. Her strength determined the stability of the entire civilization." Ambassador Wren paused, searching for the right words. "They want you, specifically you, to form a permanent alliance bond with their queen," he finally said. Ethan blinked, unsure he heard correctly. "You mean a treaty signing?" "No," said another ambassador, a soft-spoken alien diplomat with shimmering green skin. "They are asking for something deeper, a life bond, a partnership of leadership. Not romantic, not physical, a shared political identity." Ethan frowned slightly. "A symbolic co-rulership?" "Yes," Ambassador Wren confirmed. "Their queen cannot maintain authority alone. The empire is fracturing. They need a partner from outside their species to symbolize unity with other civilizations. They chose a human because humanity is seen as honorable and without hidden ambitions." Ethan understood the reasoning, but he felt uneasy. "So they want me to be a symbol, not a person." The room fell silent. His words were quiet, but they held weight. Ethan was not someone who sought power. He believed that leadership was responsibility, not reward. He did not want to be placed on a throne for show. Ambassador Wren spoke gently. "We are not forcing your decision. But if the Volari Empire collapses, it could lead to war across 5 star systems. Your choice may prevent that." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. He breathed slowly. He felt the weight of the galaxy settling onto his shoulders. He had carried heavy decisions before, but this one was different. This was not about commanding troops or signing treaties. This was about becoming part of something much larger than himself. Finally, he opened his eyes. "I want to speak to the Queen first." The journey to the Volari homeworld took 3 days through hyperspace. The ship glided past shimmering nebula clouds and glowing blue star lines. When Ethan stepped onto Volari Prime, he was greeted by structures of silver and white, smooth and curved, like natural formations shaped by wind rather than tools. The Volari valued beauty and simplicity, and their world reflected that. Yet the atmosphere around the capital city was tense. Guards stood watch at every corner. Citizens whispered in the streets. The empire was clearly under pressure. Ethan was led to the royal palace, a towering structure with open halls and gardens growing inside it. Flowers floated in the air, held up by gentle magnetic fields. Soft light made everything look calm and serene, even though the people were anything but. The Queen waited in a quiet courtyard. Queen Saline was unlike what Ethan expected. She was regal, yes, but not in a cold or commanding way. Her presence was gentle. Her eyes held intelligence and quiet strength. She sat in a floating chair supported by an elegant exoskeletal frame. The frame helped her move. Her body was not strong enough on its own, but her voice and gaze carried unmistakable authority. When she spoke, her voice was soft, but unwavering. "Captain Ethan Hale, thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "I know you carry many concerns," Ethan bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I came to understand your wishes." "I do not want to make a choice blind." The Queen nodded. "Then we will talk. Not as rulers, not as symbols. As two individuals trying to carry responsibilities that others may never understand." They walked through the palace gardens. Ethan noticed the Queen's effort to move, not because it looked painful, but because she carried herself with dignity. Her disability did not diminish her presence. In fact, it made her strength clearer. Every action she took was deliberate, every word thoughtful. The Queen spoke first. "For many years I have been told that I must appear strong, that I must not let others see difficulty or weakness. But strength is not the absence of hardship. Strength is continuing despite hardship." Ethan listened closely. She continued, "My people believe that a queen must be physically flawless. Many see me as unfit. Some wish to replace me. Others would divide the empire for their own power. I do not fear them. But I fear what will happen to the innocent if the empire falls." Her honesty was calm and without self-pity. Ethan responded quietly, "So the alliance bond is a message. That leadership is more than appearances." The Queen looked at him, her eyes gentle. "Exactly. You would not be my servant. You would be my equal. But I will not force you. A forced bond is a chain, not unity." Ethan respected her more in that moment than he expected. She did not ask for help. She asked for understanding. They spoke for hours about culture, responsibility, expectations, and choices. They shared quiet thoughts about the loneliness of leadership, the way decisions could follow a person forever. Finally, the Queen asked softly, "What is your greatest fear, Captain?" Ethan answered honestly, "Being remembered as something I did not choose to be." The Queen closed her eyes for a moment. "We share that." That evening, a grand assembly was held in the palace hall. Thousands of Valari nobles and diplomats gathered. The air buzzed with hushed conversation. Floating lights illuminated the hall. The Queen entered with Ethan beside her. A Valari elder stepped forward and addressed the crowd. "On this day, we witness a moment of history. The Queen asks Captain Ethan Hale of humanity to form the life bond and stand, with her as co-leader of the Valari Empire." The hall fell silent, every eye turned to Ethan. Whispers rose like wind. Will the human accept? Does he understand the meaning? If he refuses, the empire falls. Ethan did not rush to speak. He could feel the weight of expectation pressing against him. But pressure was not reason to decide. He believed decisions needed clarity, not fear. And so he stood calm and steady, and said, "I cannot give an answer today." Gasps spread across the hall. But Ethan continued, his voice steady and respectful. "A bond built under pressure will break. An alliance should be made of mutual choice, not fear of collapse. I need time to understand what my role would be and what the future would become. I will not give you a promise I cannot keep." The hall erupted into shocked murmurs, some angry, some surprised, some thoughtful. The Queen did not look disappointed. Instead, she raised her hand for silence and said, "Wisdom speaks slowly. Captain Ethan, Hale honors us by choosing truth over haste." Her words restored calm. Ethan stood beside her. He had not rejected her, but he had not accepted either. The future remained uncertain, and the galaxy watched. The palace halls were quieter after the assembly. The air felt heavy, like the silence after a storm that had not yet broken. Captain Ethan Hale walked through the long open corridors of the Valari royal residence, his steps slow and thoughtful. He had not slept much since his arrival. The question of the life bond repeated in his mind like an echo. He did not regret refusing to give an immediate answer, but he understood the ripple it caused. The empire was unstable. Many citizens were desperate for certainty. His hesitation had likely added more tension. But Ethan believed that decisions made out of fear were rarely the right ones. And this decision was larger than himself. It would shape two civilizations. A young Valari attendant guided him to a quiet observatory garden. The flowers floating in the air glowed softly, casting pale blue light over everything. Ethan sat on a stone bench looking up at the stars. He hoped the stillness would bring clarity, but clarity did not come. Instead, the Queen arrived. Queen Celine's floating chair moved with slow elegance. Her exoskeletal support frame glowed along her back and arms, guiding her motion. She looked calm, though he knew she carried the weight of expectations heavier than any crown. "May I sit with you?" she asked. "You do not need permission here," Ethan replied gently. She smiled, a small, warm expression. For a long moment, they simply watched the stars, two leaders from two worlds, silent in shared thought. Finally, the Queen spoke. "The council is divided. Some believe your hesitation means weakness. Others believe it means wisdom," Ethan nodded. "I expected that." She turned her head to him. "What do you believe?" Ethan took a slow breath. "I believe choices matter more than appearances. If I agree simply to calm others, then I become a symbol without purpose. That would not help your empire. Or mine." The Queen lowered her gaze. "I agree. Yet every day I wake, I feel the empire slipping further from my hands." She did not say it with fear, just truth. Ethan looked at her, seeing not a queen struggling to hold power, but a leader trying to protect her people. "Tell me," he said softly, "what do your people truly need?" She did not answer immediately. She seemed to consider not just the words, but the world behind them. "They need to believe that leadership does not come from perfection," she said at last, "but from care, from the will to rise even when standing is difficult." Ethan listened carefully. The Queen continued, her voice softer now. "All my life I have been told that my physical limitations make me unworthy, that I must hide them or hide myself, but I do not wish to hide anything anymore. If I bond with someone only to look strong, then I betray everything I stand for." Ethan felt the meaning of her words settle deeply. She did not want him to save her. She wanted him to stand with her. The next day, tensions in the palace grew. Rumors moved through the halls like restless wind. He refused. Perhaps he will accept later. Perhaps he will leave. If he leaves, the empire falls. Ethan heard some of those whispers as he walked. He did not respond. He understood that fear drove their voices. In the council chamber, nobles gathered in heated discussion. Ethan and the Queen entered together. One noble, Lord Caloran, spoke sharply. "Your Majesty, the empire cannot wait. The bond must be made quickly or the unity will shatter." Another noble, Lady Saria, countered. "A rushed bond will only reveal our desperation. The Queen seeks a partner, not a trophy." Arguments rose. Voices layered over voices. The chamber felt heavy and crowded. Ethan remained silent until the Queen lifted her hand. "Enough," she said. The room stilled. She looked at them all, her gaze steady. "Captain Ethan Hale has not refused. He has asked for understanding. That is more than many of you have ever asked before making decisions of great consequence." Some nobles lowered their eyes. The Queen continued, "I will not demand his decision. To force a partner is to build a future on broken stone." Ethan felt respect for her deepen once again. Yet he also saw fear, quiet, steady, unspoken behind several noble faces. The empire was holding on by threads. That evening, something unexpected happened. Ethan was in one of the palace corridors, reviewing diplomatic notes when the lights flickered slightly. It was small, barely noticeable, but the palace systems never flickered. They were built to remain steady under any condition. A moment later, a palace advisor hurried toward him. "Captain Hale, please come quickly. Something is wrong with the environmental systems in the Queen's residence halls." Ethan followed at once. When they arrived, technicians worked quietly to stabilize life support controls. The Queen's chamber required carefully regulated climate and energy flow to keep her exoskeletal support functioning safely. Someone had tampered with the system. No one was harmed. No confrontation occurred. Nothing exploded. No one ran through halls shouting. It was quiet, a subtle failure, discovered before damage was done. But everyone in the room understood what it meant. Someone wanted the Queen to appear weak. Someone wanted to make Ethan lose trust. Someone wanted the empire to fall. Ethan stood beside the Queen's chamber door, watching technicians restore the systems. He did not feel anger. He felt something far more dangerous and clear: resolve. When the Queen arrived, escorted by her attendants, Ethan spoke calmly. "Someone wishes to undermine you. Not by force, but by doubt." The Queen nodded, her expression composed. "Yes, and this is why I cannot rush your decision. The bond must not be a shield. It must be a foundation. Ethan understood now more than ever that the Empire was at a tipping point. If he bonded with her, the Empire would stabilize, but only if the people believed the bond was real, chosen, and meaningful, not something done to stop panic. He turned to her. "I need to know something, Your Majesty. If we stand together, will I be allowed to lead beside you? Not behind you, not in front of you, but as equal partners?" The Queen looked at him, her expression softening. "That is the only way a bond has meaning." Their eyes met, not in romance, nor in political calculation, but in mutual recognition. Two leaders who did not want power for themselves. Two leaders willing to carry burdens that others feared. Two leaders who understood that strength was not in body, rank, or tradition. Strength was in choosing to continue. The next day, the Queen invited Ethan to visit the heart of the Valari city. Together they rode a low-floating transport through the grand streets. Citizens watched curiously. Some bowed. Some stared silently. Some whispered. The Queen spoke to her people directly, without barriers or distance. She met workers, merchants, students, elders.
She listened to their concerns.
She asked questions. She thanked them for their endurance during uncertain times. Ethan saw a leader who fought for her people every single day, not with force but with empathy. He also saw how deeply the people needed hope. One child approached, her eyes bright with uncertain curiosity. "Your Majesty, will the human stay?" The Queen smiled gently. "He will choose what is right, and we will choose to remain strong together." The child nodded, accepting the answer without doubt. Ethan realized something very simple and profound. The Queen did not want him to decide for the Empire. She wanted him to join the Empire, not as a symbol, but as a partner. That evening, Ethan stood once again in the observatory garden. The soft blue light glowed around him. The Queen arrived, her presence calm as always. Ethan looked at her. "We share the same burden," he said. "Responsibility chosen, not forced." She nodded. He continued. "I cannot promise that I will know all the answers. I cannot promise that I will be the perfect leader your people need." The Queen smiled gently. "Nor can I." Ethan's voice was quiet but steady. "But I can promise that I will not abandon responsibility once I choose it. If I stand with you, I stand fully, beside you." The Queen's eyes warmed, not with triumph but with understanding. "Then," Ethan said softly, "allow me to ask you one question in return." She inclined her head. "Ask. If I choose to stand with you, will you let me walk beside you, not above or below?" The Queen's answer was simple. Yes. And for the first time since he arrived, Ethan felt clarity, a choice, made freely, a purpose, shared, a future, not yet written. The sun rose softly over Valari Prime, its gentle light spilling across silver rooftops and floating gardens. The capital city glowed in the warm morning air, but beneath that beauty, a tension still lingered. The people knew that the Empire was at a turning point, and all eyes were on the palace. Captain Ethan Hale stood in his guest chamber, looking out over the city. He felt strangely calm. The uncertainty that once weighed heavily on him was now quiet. He had made his decision, not because he was forced, not because others demanded it, but because he understood the Queen and the duty they would share. He would stand beside her, not as a savior, not as a ruler placed on a throne, but as a partner, a leader by choice. The door to his chamber opened gently, and a palace attendant entered. "Captain Hale, the Queen requests your presence in the Grand Garden Hall." Ethan nodded and followed. He walked through long corridors filled with soft light. Valari architecture always seemed to welcome the sun. The palace was designed not to impress with power, but to remind all who entered that leadership should bring clarity, not fear. When Ethan reached the Grand Garden Hall, he found Queen Selene waiting. The hall was open and bright, filled with floating flowers and gentle streams of water suspended in midair through magnetic currents. The light reflected across the surface of the water, making the room feel peaceful, alive. The Queen looked at Ethan with calm certainty. Her exoskeletal frame glowed faintly around her body, supporting her movements with graceful precision. "Are you ready?" she asked. Ethan took one slow breath and nodded. "Yes, I am." The Queen smiled. Not a formal gesture, but a true smile. Then we will do this not as rulers presenting to the galaxy, but as individuals choosing to lead together. Ethan bowed his head slightly, acknowledging her words. Later that day, the Grand Assembly Hall filled once again. Unlike the first gathering where tension hung thick in the air, today the energy was different. There was still uncertainty, yes, but also curiosity and hope. Nobles, citizens, and diplomats from across the Empire gathered. Representatives from the Galactic Concord watched from floating balcony platforms, observing quietly but with great interest. Queen Selene entered first, her presence steady and dignified. Ethan walked beside her, not behind, not ahead, equal. The hall became silent. A speaker stepped forward to begin the ceremony, but the Queen raised her hand gently. "No speeches," she said. "This bond is not for show. It is for the future." The assembly waited, listening. The Queen turned to Ethan, and he turned to her. They stood facing each other under the open skylight where sunlight streamed down. The Queen spoke first. "Choose to share leadership with Captain Ethan Hale. Not because I need him to hold this empire together, but because leadership is not meant to be carried alone. I choose him because he understands responsibility, because he does not seek power, and because he stands by his decisions when they come from truth. I choose him not as a symbol, but as a partner." Her voice carried through the hall, not loud, but sure. Ethan then spoke, his voice steady and clear. "I choose to stand beside Queen Selene, not to replace her, not to guide her, and not to be guided in return. I choose to lead with her. I choose to share the weight of decisions that will affect millions. I choose to give my loyalty not to a throne, but to the people it protects." The hall remained silent, every sound held. Then came the final words, spoken together. "We enter the life bond of leadership, equal in duty, equal in choice." A gentle light shone from the floating palace systems, marking the bond as official. Not with force, not with pressure, but with recognition. There was no applause. Instead, there was a deep, full silence, as if the galaxy paused to understand this moment. Then slowly, voices rose in calm approval. Not cheering, not shouting, but a quiet swelling of respect. It felt right. Days passed, and the bond between Ethan and the Queen began to shape the Empire in meaningful ways. Ethan joined the councils, listening before advising. He asked questions that encouraged reflection, not argument. He spoke not like a conqueror or a commander, but like someone who believed every voice mattered. The Queen continued to lead with grace and wisdom. But now, when challenges arose, she no longer faced them alone. The presence of a partner strengthened her, not because he completed her, but because they shared responsibility. Together, they began reforms that had been ignored for too long. They changed how leadership was chosen in local provinces. They opened the palace education systems to all castes, not only nobility. They encouraged the empire to value ability in all forms, not just physical strength, not just tradition, but thought, empathy, and dedication. Slowly, the empire began to stabilize. People started to feel hope again. Hope was something the galaxy had not seen in the Valari Empire for a long time, but not everyone was satisfied. One evening, the Queen and Ethan met with the High Council to discuss new social policies. After the meeting, Ethan sensed something strange. Many council members supported the reforms openly, but their tone held something else beneath it. Not resistance, not direct rebellion, uncertainty, and uncertainty could grow. When they returned to the quiet of the observatory garden, Ethan spoke first. "Some of the council are still unsure. They are waiting to see if the reforms hold." The Queen nodded. Confidence takes time to build, especially when fear has lived in their hearts for generations. Ethan looked up at the stars. "We must give them reason to believe." The Queen followed his gaze. "We will, not through commands, but through presence, consistency, understanding. Leadership is not a single moment. It is a pattern." Ethan smiled softly. Then we will build that pattern. Together. She nodded. Together. Months passed. The reforms became stable. Trade routes reopened. Regional governors pledged loyalty not out of fear, but trust. The people began to speak of the new era, the era of shared crown. And though there were still challenges, there was no collapse. There was no chaos. Instead, there was growth. News traveled across the galaxy. The Valari Empire had changed, not because of a savior, not because of force, but because of partnership, because of unity and purpose. Humanity's reputation grew as well. No longer new, no longer untested. Humanity was now known as the civilization that chooses cooperation over conquest and strength through understanding. And Ethan Hale became not a symbol, but a leader with a living legacy. One day, Ethan and Queen Celine stood together on the palace balcony overlooking the city. The air was calm, the sky clear. The city shimmered below like a field of stars on the ground. The Queen spoke softly. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if you had refused during the first assembly?" Ethan smiled thoughtfully. "I think the Empire would still stand, but not like this. You would still have found a way forward. You always do." The Queen looked at him with a quiet expression. "And I think humanity would have continued rising. But perhaps the galaxy would have taken longer to see what your people truly are." Ethan turned his gaze to the horizon. "Then perhaps we met at the right time." She nodded. "Yes, the right time." Silence rested between them, not heavy, but peaceful. The kind of silence shared only by those who understand one another. Ethan spoke one last thought. "When I came here, I did not want to become something I did not choose." "And now?" the Queen asked. Ethan's voice held quiet certainty. "Now I choose this." The Queen's smile was gentle, full of knowing, and the sun continued to rise over a galaxy slowly learning the meaning of true leadership. Not born from power, not built from perfection, but chosen, together. End of part 3.